Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory be to you, O Lord.
At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, there was a rich man who had a steward, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. And he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Turn in the account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. And the steward said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking the stewardship away from me? I am not strong enough to farm, and I am ashamed to go begging. Now I have decided what to do, so that people may receive me into their houses when I am put out of the stewardship. So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? That one said, 100 measures of oil. He said to him, take your paper, sit down quickly, and write 50. He said to another, and how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your paper and write 80. The master commended the dishonest steward for his prudence. For the sons of this world are wiser in their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous mammon, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal habitations. He who is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And he who is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give to you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and Mammon. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Lead questions for today. Question number 1. Identify the link, if any, between the first reading, which we heard from Amos chapter 8, verse 4 to 7, and the Gospel, Luke 16, 1 to 13. Identify the link, if any. Question 2. What human qualities, attributes, or abilities did Jesus find commendable in the dishonest steward? And what lessons must we learn from the story? Question 3. Why do you think that Jesus refers to money in today's gospel as that tainted thing? One translation calls it that tainted thing. But our translation today says the unrighteous mammon. Question 4. Of all the idols that people worship in Nigeria, and people do worship many idols, of all the idols people worship in our society, money is probably the most common. Discuss this briefly. Of all the idols that people worship, and people do worship many idols, of all those idols, money is probably the most common of those idols. Discuss briefly. Yes, Orachi.
I would like to attempt question says, what human qualities, attributes, or abilities did Jesus find commendable in a dishonest steward, and what lesson must we learn from the story? Jesus Christ found commendable in the steward his act of kindness and charity, so to speak, because we saw that he knew that trouble was coming to him, and he decided to be generous and charitable with his master's servants, so that there will be people who welcome him in the day of trouble. So Jesus Christ saw that. He decided to sow a seed of kindness, sow a seed of help to people that needed help, so that in the time of trouble...
With an ulterior motive.
Yes, with an ulterior motive. So that in the time of trouble, these people will welcome him. And the lessons we must learn from the story is that we must be generous and we must be kind. I think some other part, Jesus Christ talks about you being kind to the poor, because these are the people that will welcome you in God's kingdom. They are friends of God, and your kindness to them will gain you access into the kingdom.
It's into this gospel.
Yes. So that quality of charity, that quality of kindness, that quality of compassion, that quality of generosity is what Jesus Christ is saying we should learn. Oftentimes, people tend to hoard things for themselves and they try to live for themselves. But if we want to inherit God's eternal kingdom, we must be ready to be free and help others.
Okay, before we give you a round of applause, Mr. Kwo, is this really charity? Can you support him? Well, she's on the way, but is it really charity? Because this charity has K-leg, isn't it? Yes. This kindness has K-leg. We are not told that he was so kind before. So now, this 11th hour charity, 11th hour kindness, 11th hour compassion. What do you have to say?
The level of dishonesty is still on the steward.
So the label of dishonesty is still there?
Yes, but he was prudent.
Correct. Give him a round of applause. He was
prudent.
Good. Actually, the word prudence is there in the gospel.
Yes.
That Jesus commended him for his prudence. And what is prudence?
Prudence.
No, not prudence.
I think wise use of resources.
Wise use of resources.
Thinking outside the box.
Thinking outside the box. Give him a round of applause. He thought outside the box. Okay, so you can now give right. Yes, Mike.
I want to attempt question 1.
Yes.
Identify the link, if any, between the first reading from Amos chapter 8 and the gospel of today. The link between the first reading and the gospel is the use of Mammon, that tainted thing.
The use.
The use.
Okay, so the emphasis is not the Mammon, but the use.
The use of it.
Okay.
In Amos, in the reading we had, the rich were not as astute or shrewd as the servants we read about in the gospel. Because rather than use their wealth to build themselves treasures in heaven, they were using their wealth and their power to oppress the poor.
Now, Amos is a prophet that arose to defend the rights of the poor against the rich, the rights of the lowly, the widow, the orphan against their oppressors. And this thing that is happening in Nigeria today has always been happening. So Amos arose to indict the powerful and the rich for what they are doing to the poor. In fact, he even uses the expression, they buy the poor for a pair of sandals. So what the steward, the dishonest steward, did in the gospel that Jesus commended, the rich in the time of Amos, they were not doing it. So they are doomed because they were not using what is available to them today to prepare for an uncertain tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah, that is a major link between the first and the second reading.
And the second
But again,
reading.
let me just add that for the second, the question that was Orachi answered,
Yes, question 2.
question 2. If I take what is happening in our society today, it is unfortunate that the children of the kingdom of darkness are doing everything to preserve and to actually forward, that kingdom of darkness.
To preserve the
To
status quo.
preserve the status quo. In fact, apart from preserving the status quo, they want to expand the kingdom of darkness. And they are doing everything. They are very astute. They are very shrewd. Look around us in the country of Nigeria. We are where we are today because the kingdom of darkness is expanding on a daily basis. But you ask yourself the questions, where are the Christians? What are we doing?
Those
What are
that
we-
belong to the kingdom of light, what are you doing?
What are we
Later I
doing?
will say that I'll quote Edmund Burke, who says that evil advances because the so-called good people fold their hands and do nothing.
So that is the bit I want to ask there, because if we can be as shrewd as the children of the kingdom of darkness, then we'll be able to expand the kingdom of light in the world here.
That's another word, astute, right?
Yes.
Astute. And astute is actually a very positive word. It's not like cunning, It's not like clever. Clever is often somebody who is cunning, who has cunning, and who is crafty. But astute, meaning it's wise. It's wise. As he says, he's able to think outside the box, and when challenges come up, is looking for opportunities within the challenge. What are the opportunities that I can have from here? Give him a round of applause. Yes. Has it been answered? Okay. Yes. Yes, Emmanuel. And then when you finish, you give it to
Please permit me to attempt question 4.
yes.
Of all the idols that people worship in our society, money is probably the most common. Just briefly. Father, I think money is probably the most common because, as some people say, that money is everything.
No, let's see. Do you know of the other idols? Actually, that guy sitting near you knows more of those idols than you. But do you know of the other idols apart from money?
Yes, Father.
What are they?
Things like popularity.
Popularity has
Things
become
like-
an idol.
Yes. Things like power.
Power has become an idol. You know what it means by popularity? Celebrity status.
Celebrity, yeah.
And people worshiping celebrities. So, celebrities have become an idol. Yes.
Okay.
So, power, to get into power, has become an idol. And people are ready to do anything to get into power. Next.
Okay.
Is
Father,
that,
there
are
are
those the only idols you know?
No, there are many, Father. There are many things that people, that even on a personal level, how we look, and people, cars, properties. There are many things, Father, that people take as their idol. That
And for a lot of women in this society, getting married, young women getting married is an idol. Because anything that means so much to you that you are ready to compromise any principle becomes an idol. Do you know that? For many mothers who have 35, 38-year-old daughters, their children getting married has become an idol. True or false? They are ready to violate any principle to see that occur. Once you are ready to violate any principle to achieve anything, that thing has become
an idol. Father, play a lot of them, like phone, internet, social media. There are so many things that take people's attention.
You try to collect your teenager's phone from him or her, and then you will see what will happen.
Yeah.
Aha.
So there are so many things, but I think money is probably the most common because, as I said earlier, some people say that money is everything. And so, how to get the money takes all their attention, even their worship and adoration of God. They go out to make money by all means, even to sacrificing their fellow human being, their friends. Father, so people do so many things. We talked about corruption, like Mike was saying just now. Why all the things that is happening in the society, the corruption, and to what end? Is to make money. And the purpose of making the money to what again? What good? To oppress our neighbor, to think that we'll get all the good things of life. So it takes people's attention. People, all they think about is how to make this money.
At the end of this month, we're going to watch a short movie about how little we are in the scheme of things. And yet, we are in this tiny little corner of this tiny little planet called the Earth, which is a tiny little spot in the galaxies, right? We are in this tiny little corner of this tiny little Earth, and then we think we are somebody, and we are doing everything to gather. We are doing everything to gather and to use what we gather, as he says, to oppress our neighbor, to show our neighbor that we are more. And yet, all of us, like Queen Elizabeth, we will end up 6 feet below. All of us. I mean, you can live as long as my mother, 99. But whether you live for 30 years or you live for 99 years, we will all end up. So, clearly, there is a question you had. For what purpose? They are doing this in order to use to oppress others. Actually, I don't think that many human beings are often thinking, what is the purpose? You know, I keep saying, people wake up, they eat breakfast, they go to work, they come back, they sleep, they woke up, and so on, they do all this. Many people never sit down and ask themselves, what is the purpose of my life? So you oppress people, you exploit people, and you make millions and live in the posh part of town. So what? For what purpose? Do you understand? Many people have not asked themselves. You get married at 24, you have 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. For what purpose? You get job in LNG and receive all the money in the world, even at your starting level, more than a professor. Yes, now, Helen, are you getting the kind of money they get in LNG? For what purpose? I mean, people are not actually sitting down to ask themselves, what is the purpose of my life, the ultimate purpose of my life? Just to buy a trendy car? In those days, it used to be G-Wagon, right? No. A G-Wagon, that's like Helen's own. It's a past tense. Just to live in a posh house in Banana Republic? Banana Island, what's the difference? So get all the money in order that you may have children, you may have a house in Dubai and house in London, and house for what purpose? How I wish people constantly sat down and asked themselves, what is the purpose of all this? To what end? Because if we constantly sit down to ask ourselves to what end, we will be more modest. We will begin to tone down on all this, recognizing that, they displayed some of the properties of Queen Elizabeth, isn't it? On TV in recent times, they displayed the number of vintage cars she has, the number of looted resources from Africa and other places she has, the number of gold, diamonds she has. At the end of the day, if they don't bury her on time, she will start smelling. At the end of the day, she will end up just like the beggar on the street of London, 6 feet below. Shouldn't that teach us some lessons? At the end of the day, ultimately, we all end up there. And we are hearing, what is it that will guarantee us a future beyond ending up in these places? Now, question 3, nobody has answered. Let's have a friend there behind on the right. Question 3.
May I attempt question number 3? He says, why do you think that Jesus refers to money in today's gospel as that tainted thing or the unrighteous mammon? I would rather say that the Lord Jesus never condemned the having money. It is our attitude to it. If we are so attached to money that it leads us away from doing anything that we are supposed to do with the money, then it becomes a tainted thing. If you have money, the money you have, you are supposed to use it to do God's work. Share among the people that do not have and do godly things. But when we now have that attachment to acquiring money, and then we now go on to do so many untoward things to make sure that we get it, then it becomes tainted and it distracts us from the kingdom.
If you read through the gospel, actually, several times Jesus refers to it as unrighteous money, tainted money. Isn't there something he's saying about money itself? Isn't there something he's saying about the character of money itself? If you read the context, it's not just talking about the use. He constantly refers to money in those, he qualifies money each time. Tainted money, unrighteous mammon. He keeps saying. So don't you think there's something about the character of money itself?
Yeah, money.
I know people like you who have some money want to make sure that it is not painted as bad. But I'm trying to say, let's take the words of Jesus as he said it. And each time he spoke about money, it is something to be handled with left hand like this.
He says you cannot serve God and
money.
And because both of them cannot mix. You'll be distracted if you now pursue. You will love one and hate the other. You know, and sometimes they refer to money as the root of all evils.
As the
root of all
the love of money, St. Paul says, is the root of all evil.
Yes, Father.
Thank you. Can we move? Helen, yes.
Father, I just wanted to add to question number 2. Let's not lose sight of the lessons we must learn from the story of the dishonest servant.
Yes.
That we must use all resources entrusted to us
To advance.
for your spiritual growth and then for the welfare of your brothers and sisters.
Use all the resources entrusted to you. Now, take note. That reminds me to add. What that parable indicates is that just like the dishonest steward who didn't own the property, none of the things in your possession is yours. Do you understand? None of the material things in your possession is really yours. We are all like that steward who is just made a manager of the goods, and the things are supposed to pass through him. So none of the things we own, we claim to own, is really our own. The reason is that any day it can be taken away from us. Okay. Amos, the great champion of justice. Anybody who is pursuing justice in our day has to take Amos as a patron. Amos was a farmer, by the way. He was not trained as a prophet and had no link with any group of professional prophets. He was called directly by God to preach against the gross inequality between the rich and the poor, to preach against the callous exploitation of the poor by the rich businessmen and women who paid lip service to God on the Sabbath while exploiting the poor the rest of the week. Amos had none of the polished diplomatic language of the official prophets of the time. One of the elements of the biblical prophet is that the biblical prophet was not a diplomat. The biblical prophet did not have diplomatic language. He says it as it is. He was very passionate about the injustices of the day, and he denounced these injustices, like I said, undiplomatically, frankly, openly, bluntly, and vigorously. Amos was hurting inside, and he screamed in protest. He was mourning the loss of fidelity and the absence of true religion in the land. He did not accept that injustice is inevitable. I mean, people tell you that's the way it is. You complain about the injustices in society, and there are people who say, oh, that's the way it is. That's the way it has always been. Well, if it has always been so, it should not continue to be so. He did not accept that evil should be tolerated anymore by anyone who claims to know God. He declared that their elaborate prayers and ritual sacrifices were useless. So he says, can you read? Yes, Amos 5, 23 to 24. What is the point in prayer vigils, he says? What is the point in loud praises, dry fast, and pilgrimages, when the consciences of those who trample on the weak and exploit the poor in the land is not touched? Religious worship is an affront to God when those who pretend to be religious are allies of the oppressive class against the poor and the weak. When religious practice is not sufficiently critical of social injustice. I was on my way this morning, and in one of these estates at their gate, I saw that they tied a human being at the back. And the human being was like firewood that they tied was like rolling on the ground. I can imagine the level of brutalization he would have suffered. I think he attempted to steal or something, and they caught him. I can imagine the brutalization he would have suffered before they succeeded in tying him, and he was rolling on the ground, and people were standing there. And I had to quickly call somebody I know in that estate to say, please, let them not do further brutalization. Let them take this person to the police. Now, Nigerians will witness that, will be part of that, and go to church. And from there, go to church. Do you understand? Once somebody has been caught, a thief has been caught, it deserves to be treated like a human being. But for our people, you know, they say, before you can actually do a lot of brutality to a human being, you would have removed humanity from the person. You no longer consider, because he's a thief, because he stole or he attempted to steal, he's no longer a human being. So you remove the human character from him so that you can do anything. I couldn't. We were praying in the car as I was coming, but I couldn't continue my prayer. Because for me, what kind of prayer if I see this and do nothing about it? I couldn't continue my prayer. I had to call somebody that I know there to say, please rush to that place. This was 6:30 a.m. Please rush to that place and see how you can stop the brutalization. Let them send the person to the police station. Because I just couldn't stand that, you know. But like I said, Nigerians will witness that, do nothing about it, go to church and praise the Lord, oh single, single. That is exactly what Amos is talking about. That please, let your worship inspire your action. Let your worship inspire your feelings for other human beings. Let your worship moderate what you do to your neighbor. Amos says that many people cannot claim to belong to God while living off the misery of the poor. God is not impressed by such worship. One of the worst things we have done in this country is that church leaders have constantly given room, sometimes even give the pulpit to corrupt people to come and address the church. And corrupt people have often found it an opportunity to promote themselves in the house of God. And I'm saying, must you give people the platform of the lectern, of the altar, of the sanctuary, in order for them to donate money to the church? I see it as an abuse, a terrible abuse that I've been speaking against for a long time. If somebody must donate money, can't he be on his seat and tell you what he wants to donate? Must he come to the altar? Now, as we receive him on the altar, well, a lot of people who are sitting down in the pews, they know what this person is up to. They know what this person is up to. Much more than the pastor or the priest knows what he's up to. And so we should be careful. Leaders in churches should be careful. Fundraising committees, harvest committees should be careful. Because we are often given a platform to people who have put us where we are. I am one of those who believe that if society is well run, we don't need any big man to give us millions. If society is well run, the little 1,000 naira, 500 naira from everybody in the church will run the church. If our society is well run, if everybody has employment, if everybody is getting a living wage, then the contribution of everybody should be able to run the church. Then you don't need a multimillionaire to come and donate 10 million, 20 million. You don't need that. So what we are doing is backward integration. Let society be well run. Let justice roll like a river. And then the church will run properly because people will contribute. Each person will contribute, even the poorest person in the church. And then we can run the church with those resources. Religion cannot sit on the same pew with greed for money and lust for power. When religious worship is carried on along with the looting of public treasury and the exploitation of the poor, such religion is nothing but what? Empty ritualism or meaningless drama. You know, people can do a lot of drama and say they are worshiping. Does that make it worship? Such religion is what? Blasphemy. It neither honors God nor sanctifies the person worshiping. In the gospel of today, Jesus tells the story of the dishonest but shrewd steward. Threatened with dismissal for dishonesty, he summons his master's debtors one by one and persuades them to rewrite their indebtedness for less than they actually owe. Now, take note. This is a point that many people don't understand. And I once again, as I have done years before, explain. What we know as stewards today is not what stewards were in the days of Jesus. Stewards were like the general manager of the master's things. So the steward may actually have had the right to do what he did now. Do you understand? He was accused of dishonesty before he did this. Now, when he did this, we are told that his master commended him. Did you hear that? Yes. It is not Jesus that commended him. It is his master that commended him. The reason is that the stewards of those days were the managers of the master's property. They had a right to give discount to people. Now, the fact that you have a right to give discount to people, does it mean you will give the discount? No. So you decide, every steward, every manager has some prerogative. Even as we all complain in Nigeria, each one of us has some prerogative. So, how are you using your prerogative? How are you using your prerogative? Whatever office you are occupying, whatever, you have a prerogative. Even my security guard here has prerogative because I could be busy, and when he looks at your face, he will say, Father is too busy, he can't see you. But he could use his prerogative. He can come and see me and say, excuse me, I say, what is it? He say, there's this person, he looks desperate. Please, can he see you? What has he done? He has used his prerogative. So the steward used his prerogative to rewrite the indebtedness of the debtors so that he may not be thrown out, so that there will be somebody to take him in. In a time of crisis, the steward takes immediate action and firm action, using the resources available to him at the moment to ensure his own future. Please take note of those words in red, right? What did he do? Use the resources available to you today at the moment to ensure your own future. Now, this is the point of Jesus. Because this is one story that people do confuse a lot. This is the point Jesus is making. Can you read it slowly? If a dishonest man can use his master's money to ensure there will be friends to welcome him when he is out of job, how much more should those who call themselves children of God or religious people use their wealth or position in such a way that they will be welcomed into the kingdom of God? That's the point. There are people who go away and say Jesus is saying that we should be cheating our masters. No. And such people do not know what a parable means. A parable is a story told to teach a lesson. You don't start scrutinizing the details of the line by line of the parable. That's not the point. What lesson is he trying to teach? The lesson he's trying to teach is use what is available to you today to prepare for an unsure future. Jesus even goes ahead to hold him up as an example. He says, I tell you, make friends for yourself with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails you, you will be welcomed into the kingdom, eternal kingdom. Luke 16:9. Jesus says, the children of light can learn one or two things from the children of darkness. The fact that they are children of darkness doesn't mean they have no sense at all. Does it mean they have no sense at all? No. We can learn one or two things. I mean, if you go to a Catholic seminary, a major seminary to prepare for the priesthood, one of the courses you do, we call it philosophy. You study philosophy for 4 years for a first degree in philosophy. And every priest you see around has studied philosophy before studying religion. Now, a lot of those philosophers are atheists. We study people like Friedrich Nietzsche. He's a first-class atheist. However, he's one of the wisest human beings the world has produced. He is the one who declared that God is dead. But we study him in the seminary. Why? Because the fact that he does not believe in God doesn't mean he has nothing to teach people. So, the children of light can learn one or two things from the children of darkness. Evil people are often industrious. They are often single-minded. They are often focused. They are often prepared to make sacrifices in order to achieve their evil ends. You see? Evil people are, like Mike said, see the effort that people are making to maintain the status quo in Nigeria. See the effort people are making. Our naira has fallen so low because we are told that some big people who want to keep the status quo have mopped up all the dollars in the world, in Nigeria, for election. The next election is going to be a competition of, not naira, isn't it? Of dollars. We saw a bit of it during the primaries, didn't we? The children of light can learn one or two things from the children of darkness. Yes, evil people are ready to make sacrifices. Good people, on the other hand, often just sit there and fold their hands, doing nothing and expecting things to go right for them. Will it happen? See how Inya was begging and begging people here to go and register. Right? Begging and begging people here. I won't be surprised if there are still one or two people, a few people who didn't register in spite of all that appeal. Because they just expect that things will go right. Will things go right like that? Edmund Burke says, all it takes for evil to triumph is that people do nothing. That is people who think they are good, though. Today's story is told to teach Christians the wise use of money, to stress the impossibility of any compromise between God and Mammon, and to emphasize that to use money wisely is to constantly give it away, rather than hoarding it and thereby ensure one's salvation. Next Sunday, we shall be reading about Lazarus and the rich man. So the teaching will continue. The dishonest steward gave away the wealth at his disposal today for the sake of the future. Please, just get the point that that's the central point. Use what you have today to ensure a place for you tomorrow. That is the key point. If you forget every other thing, don't forget that. And everyone has something available to him or her today. Everyone. Like I said, from the Megad to the MD, everyone has. Prof, in the hospital, don't the most junior staff have some prerogative? Everybody has some prerogative. But use that your prerogative today to prepare for the future. Money easily becomes tainted wealth, unrighteous mammon, contaminated riches, or lustful possession if we do not relate to it appropriately. Either God owns us or money owns us. We cannot be owned by both. Every Christian must make a fundamental choice between serving God and neighbor and serving wealth and possessions. We cannot serve both God and money. Can we read? Yes, money can buy you things, but it cannot buy the kernel. It can buy the husks, but not the kernel. Money cannot give you the highest value, the real value. The parable challenges us to reflect on our attitude towards money and material possessions. We often begin by thinking that we own the possessions, but the possessions often end up doing what? Owning us and enslaving us. When you look at the media today, especially the social media, there is such vanity on display. And I don't know whether you are all critical about what is happening. Please look at what is happening with a certain critical eye. There's so much vanity today, and it's marks of people who are not thinking. People who are not thinking. And a lot of our young people are just running after people who are making big money and having big house and having big car and having baby mamas. Baby daddy. Is there baby daddies? And we're not thinking that, look, when has vanity ever promoted the world? When has vanity, the open display of vanity, don't they say empty barrels make the loudest noise? The kind of thing we see displayed by a lot of our celebrities, can't you see that it is not going to take us anywhere? Can't you see that this is an era, a civilization that is dying, an era headed for destruction? A generation that does not promote its philosophers. A generation that does not promote its wise men and women. A generation that promotes vile entertainers. And they are the ones that millions of people are following. Don't you see that generation is heading for a ruin? Look, I ask, how come that companies, and there are one or two company executives here, how come that companies look for brand ambassadors? They won't go and look for the child that got 9 A's in WAEC as a brand ambassador. They will go and take the one that strip herself naked on the stage as a brand ambassador. What is wrong with their heads? What kind of idiocy, what kind of idiots do we have as company executives that do that? You are looking for brand ambassador? Somebody got 369 in WAEC this year. In JAM this year, 369 in JAM this year. I have not seen the person being used as a brand ambassador. You go and take the person, a madman or madwoman, who is displaying evidences of psychosis on stage. You take that person as a brand ambassador. What is wrong with us? I don't know how many of you saw the video that one Islamic cleric made a video about TikTok and said TikTok is produced by Chinese, but that all those nonsense that you see on TikTok, they don't see it in China. What you see it on TikTok in China are the best scientists, the best artists, the best whatever. That's what you see in China. But they give you those ones so that you can continue to fool yourselves and amuse yourselves while they are having the best, while they are working towards conquering the world in the next 10, 20, 30 years. They are working on conquering the world with ideas, and they are leaving you to amuse yourself and laugh all day. You see what is wrong? And we don't seem to have leaders who will call to order what is happening now. And I go to homes sometimes, and I see parents sitting down with their children to enjoy these vile entertainments. There are parents who sit down to enjoy reality shows with their children. Your children will do worse than you. That's what it means. Our dealings with the world and all it contains, and especially our attitude towards money and material possessions, must be placed in total submission to the loving service of God, who made us and gave us all that we have and all we are. Are you familiar with those pictures? Huh? They are like from they say that the greatest profession today is delegate. The most profiting profession in Nigeria is what? Delegate. And very sadly, none of my members is a delegate. Very sadly. Is there any of you who is a delegate? So that none of you is a delegate. Can you imagine? And delegate is one of the most important, is the most important profession in the country today. Delegate. Between now and February, be a delegate. But that's what is happening. Because money is king. When people really want something, they often rise to the occasion. You remember the story of Toby and Masu? They deploy all their ingenuity into achieving the objective. If you are so smart, Jesus says, in the things of the world, how come you are so dumb about spiritual values? How come you don't understand that real success in this life is being able to jeer the present to us? If such cunning can be used to ensure the life of a steward in his administration of earthly things, how much more should we, who have been called to share in the treasures of the kingdom, commit ourselves to the administration of these eternal treasures with great diligence? The message of Jesus today is the same as he addressed to the rich young man. There is still one thing you lack. Go sell everything you own and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me. Luke 18:22. Give away your wealth, for they are a distraction. That's what Jesus is saying. Use them to make friends who will welcome you into God's kingdom. Use them to prepare a soft landing for yourself in heaven. Yes, Jesus says, in the same manner that the children of the world take advantage of their worldly goods to take them as far as they can in their earthly goals, the children of light should make the most of their material goods so that the goods can take them as far as possible in carrying out God's will. Instead of being covetous and greedy and hoarding your material things, you should seize every opportunity to use them for the benefit of others, for the benefit of God. Use your earthly goods freely to serve God's purpose, and don't be the servants of these goods. Greed and covetousness will turn you against God. Godliness, on the other hand, equips you to shun greed and covetousness. For you cannot serve, you cannot be a slave of both God and money. Yes, those who want to be rich, we read in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 to 10, often fall into temptation and are trapped by many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And in their eagerness to be rich, many have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many fatal wounds. Yes, riches either serve or govern the possessor. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Proverbs 11:4. So, as we close, what you are to reflect upon is, how much has following Jesus cost me? We keep speaking about the cost of discipleship. So you, now, yourself, Joseph and Reformer and Anselm and Judith and, Inya and God's time, and how much has following Jesus cost you? It is supposed to cost. It's not supposed to just be like belonging to a club. What have you had to give away or give up for the sake of the kingdom of Christ? There's got to be something that you've had to give away or give up. What is it that you had to give away or give up for the sake of following Christ? If you are not immediately able to point to 1, 2, 3 things, then we better ask yourself, are you really following Jesus? Because following Jesus does cost a lot. You see, a lot of people are in church and they are like sleeping, lacking zeal for God and the things of God. Many people are just tepid, cold, lackadaisical. I spare you the others. Lack no zeal for God. When it comes to the gospel, they are cold, apathetic, sleepwalking, despondent. Many of us often have no passion, no fire. You can easily see it when people have no fire for the things of God. But when it's the same people exhibit enormous passion when it comes to pursuing money and political power. We know, isn't it? When it is about the care of their physical looks. Somebody who has not spent 5 minutes praying today has spent 30 minutes before the mirror. Something is, there's a priority problem. As they show devotion to their favorite TV show, a celebrity, a football club. I mean, the passion people put into these things, it just shows that, one, people have passion, right? These vain things are our modern day idols. Fingernails, wristwatch, eyeglasses. What do you call this? This long hairs, the one that you import. I mean, bowstring. Bowstring. I mean, I have a personal lament. I've been lamenting the fact that they say our country is poor because we have no export and we are importing everything. It is not enough that we are importing food to eat, that we are importing cars to drive. We are even importing hair to put on our head. And we are importing fingernail. Prof, can you see that our problem is serious? That we are importing fingernail. May the Lord endow us with some leader someday in this country that will ban these things. You can't have a society that people are importing fingernails and you think that you can be rich. Mr. Okwo, a society where people are importing fingernails and you think that you can be a rich society, it's not going to happen. You are importing hair, you are importing fingernail, you are importing what? Even eyelashes, Pepe May. You are imported. How can you ever be rich? I mean, foolish people. Foolish people, really. This one I have no apologies to say. Foolish people. It doesn't make sense. No one truly encounters Jesus without being set aflame. Jesus either has all of you or he has nothing of you. He accepts no compromise. You cannot serve both God and money. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you, glorify your holy name. Thank you for your love and your goodness. Thank you for today. Thank you for the message of Amos, reminding us of the sanctity and dignity of every human being who should be treated as your child, your son and daughter, with respect, with dignity. Thank you for the message of Jesus about focus, about making sacrifices today for the sake of the future, about deferred gratification, about using our prerogative today to prepare soft landing for ourselves. Lord, help us to understand. Help us to make the necessary adjustments. Help us to take eternal life as our highest priority and to walk towards it with all that is available to us today. Through Christ our Lord.